Nobody deceives like an addict.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. 1 year later, what happened to Summer Wells? 1 year later, what do we know? In this episode, I'm going to share my theory of what I think happened to Summer on the afternoon of June 15th last year in Kingsport, Tennessee. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do like, share, leave a comment. You can also leave a thanks if you appreciate the content, and let's get started. So the True Crime Rocket Science theory is that when Summer Wells was brought home in the early afternoon of June 15th, that was a Tuesday, she was either in a comatose state or no longer alive. She wasn't taken into the house and the boys didn't see her, but instead she was likely carried to the shed at the bottom of the property, which is connected via a broken tree line clearing. The time to walk to and from the house to the shed may be around 5 minutes, and it's really something that is worth timing. One of the last witnesses to see her alive said she went away briefly, by some accounts for 10 minutes, while others say 2 to 5 minutes. Her remains were then picked up at the shed by another individual who was alerted to where they were over the phone and then taken elsewhere. It's also possible Summer was dropped off at the shed before the vehicle carrying her drove up Ben Hill Road. And now we go to problems with statements. The original dispatcher said the mother had went for a walk, came home, and now they can't find her. Candace has since denied going on a walk the day Summer disappeared. It's also strange that Don was at work when this happened, and when Candace called, because it begs the question, who was looking after the boys? And they were little boys, they were Summer's brothers. Who was looking after them when all the adults were away, including Grandma? And that brings us to Don's story. To be honest, I'm struggling to find the original statements Don made, particularly to a certain YouTube channel. Perhaps it's been removed, but the fact is, he said before he left work, that was the afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, the afternoon of Summer's disappearance, he said before he left work, he collected his tools. He said he then headed to Ben Hill Road, and he rushed there. But instead of heading home, he said he stopped below the house, and he looked around the shed area. The Wells boys were apparently looking for Summer then as well, but around the creek. It's unclear what the Wells children know about their baby sister, or indeed when was the last time they saw her. As far as I know, although Don went down to the shed area, and although the boys were apparently not by the shed but sort of around the creek, Don didn't sort of collect the boys into his vehicle. That's how I understand it, and you would wonder why he wouldn't. Especially if you think about him knowing immediately there was an abductee in the area, why would you not make sure the boys were with him, with their father? That then brings us to time. The family called 911 at 6:30 p.m. that night, but I believe whatever happened to Summer occurred several hours before that, possibly as much as 4 hours before that. That then brings us to location. Where did Summer disappear from? Also, what is the actual location where whatever happened? Was it the swimming hole? Was it the vehicle she was traveling in? Was it the basement of Chalet Wells? Or was it the shed? Or was there also a subtext to all of this, that something had been happening to Summer all along in a different sort of context? Now, in terms of location, one would imagine cadaver dogs could theoretically be able to answer that question. We know cadaver dogs were used as early as June 20th, just 5 days after she disappeared. It's unclear whether cadaver dogs alerted anywhere, if at all. If they did alert, where did they alert? It's also possible Summer was in a comatose state and thus alive for some time, appearing to be asleep before expiring. Coma is one of the classic symptoms both of drowning and dry drowning. Coma can last for as long as 6 hours or even more. This might explain the lack of cadaver odor. And now we go to the next section, witnesses. One of the witnesses who saw Summer Wells on the last day said he saw her go under the water at the swimming hole, in his words, for 10 to 15 seconds. He also admitted that he wasn't in the water at the time and went in to check on her. One of the major underemphasized themes of the Summer Wells case, in my view, is the fact that she went swimming in a river setting and she was a 5-year-old that couldn't actually swim. At 24 minutes and 19 seconds in Chris McDonough's video interviewing Macbeth, I'll put a link to that in the description. That's Chris McDonough from the interview room. He asked the teenager if Summer could have been injured in some way after going underwater. Macbeth responds, she could have been. In close-up images from the last photo of Summer, there does appear to be faint bruising on the one side of her head. It's also interesting, in his story to the interview room, Macbeth starts off saying he went into the water calm as heck because she might just be messing around. But then a few seconds later in his story, he actually says he had to fish her out of the water while she was still underwater. He also talks about water in her lungs, so he obviously has that idea in his mind as a direct result of this incident in the swimming hole. There's also a section shortly after him saying he was calm as heck, where he says he wasn't calm, that he was spooked, that he was a bit scared, but then he seems to sort of backtrack and minimize that. Now let's move on to the next section, church vigils. In the first few weeks and months, the church the Wells family were affiliated with held regular vigils for Summer. I'm not sure when the last vigil was, but it was likely months ago. And then let's go on to the final aspect, just in terms of this recap, and that is symbolism. The Wells family have suggested Summer was lured away, and I wonder whether there's some truth to that. A young child who can't swim in a river scenario, it's not a swimming pool, it's a river scenario where the footing is subtle, may feel lured to go out deeper, to go out further. It happens all the time. I also wonder whether the narrative that she went down into the basement and disappeared, in other words, went down somewhere where you can't see her, where she couldn't be seen, isn't symbolic for her going under the water and later under the house and down to the shed. Finally, we also don't know whose truck the red 1998 or 2000 Toyota Tacoma is, the one with the white ladders on the side and buckets, and if it played any role in the possible relay of removing Summer Wells from the Ben Hill Road area. But one thing seems clear, even a year later, we seem no closer to finding Summer Wells. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.